Welcome to episode 37 of Kiss Meets the Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Eli Clausen.
I'm another one of your hosts, not
And,
Eli Clausen.
and this may or may not be the time that you see just the two of us. Keep on watching in the future for that. Maybe even as early as next week, right?
Might be 7 of us next time.
Yeah, we might just be a whole Partridge Family band.
Yeah, 8 is enough or something.
We're getting the bus painted up right now.
And a big Kiss logo on the side of it.
Oh man. So not a whole lot again in the Kiss world other than
Oh, what's up with that? It's like that every time. It's like, are they ever going to do anything?
I know, like come on guys, give us something to talk about.
Yeah. No, that's Bonnie Raitt.
How about love? Well, the announcement was made just recently. Gene's new book will be hitting the shelves on November 14th. Believe the title is On Power. It looks like basically a follow-up to his last book. What was that called?
Women of the Night or something.
Money, Power, and Kiss or something like that. Or no, Me Inc. was the last book. And it looks.
I've seen that on clearance rack all over the place.
I have the book, but I haven't even read it yet. I honestly don't know if I'll ever read it. I just got it because it's a Gene Simmons book, and got to have it, of course. But
I'm surprised that I didn't get it because like I said, it was like I don't know $5.99 or something when I seen it last.
Yeah. I mean, you own Asshole, and you don't even buy that book.
No, I am one.
Oh.
That's totally different. I do own that one though.
So to me, looking at the cover, it looks like a follow-up. It has the Moneybag logo on the front again. Looks like another, business and power-related type of book. So again, like I'll probably pick it up somewhere down the road once it gets cheaper. And will I ever read it? Who knows? But just kind of got to have it because it's Kiss-related and Gene-related. So.
Well, when are you going to buy that coffee table book that's like $1 million or something?
The monster book.
Has that ever showed up on eBay or anything?
I haven't looked, but I would not be surprised. But at the same time, I wonder if enough were ordered to where anybody would even be selling any right now.
Right. How much would they sell them for on eBay? They'd have to make their money back, and they would be outrageous.
Could you imagine shipping the damn thing?
No.
How much that would cost? And then, where are you going to put the damn thing when you bring it in your house? You're going to have to, prop it up against a wall.
Yeah.
Or something.
Room.
Put it in a cage and feed it. Feed it, water it, take it out for a walk. And God, I mean, it is a monster, so.
Yeah.
That's going to be something we're going to do after the show is get on eBay and look and see if any are on there. And and then next week we'll be able to show you a copy because one of us will be dumb enough to order it.
Not going to be me.
Maybe we can just split one copy and then cut it in half. Each of us could have a foot and a half.
Make paper dolls out of it.
Oh my God.
Life-size paper dolls.
Having a history book is enough of a pain in the ass, let alone some 3 foot tall giant thing like that.
Oh, the history one that I have, the binding's all coming loose and everything on it.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Wow. See, mine, I got lucky and stumbled across it on Goodwill, the website that they have where you can buy stuff from all over. Found it on there for a decent price. Looked at it once, haven't looked at it since. I don't have the second one. I'm still looking for the second one.
Me too.
I hear it's not as good, but again, I gotta have it because it's part 2. It's Kiss, and I want to look at it.
I don't think. You think they're ever going to do a part 3?
No.
I don't either.
We're probably more likely to get Kissology 4 before a part 3 of Kisstory and or a monster part 2.
Right. Yeah, I think for sure they've learned their lesson on that one.
Monster 2, now 6 foot tall, bigger, better, badder. comes with a free autograph of Vinnie Vincent. And
Well, why would you want that to be free when you'd pay extra for it?
here's my thing: if I'm gonna buy a book that's 3 foot tall, they better put actual pieces of costume in there. Like, I better flip a page and there's a whole entire shirt sitting
Yeah,
there.
like gold records and all that.
Give us something worth buying. But
I mean, I'm sure it's cool, but because I seen, I don't know if it was them, flip through a few pages of it on something when they first were promoting it. It's cool and all, but it's just like it's just not that cool.
right, and I think the biggest thing is the size. I mean, that immediately threw a lot of people off because obviously, like we said, where are you going to put that damn thing? You can't just
Yeah, because if it was like a regular magazine size,
yeah.
we would already have it.
Yeah, or even the size of Kistery,
Because we could afford it for one thing.
Find it at half price books.
Right. Sure, yeah.
It's not like you can just throw that thing on a coffee table and, hell, you'd have to slide it under your bed or
It
something.
would
Or
be your coffee table.
yeah, there you go.
Buy some legs for it.
Yeah, you can use Kistery as the legs for it, prop them up, and you'd have to slide that thing under your bed, or like we said, prop it up against a wall or something. Or,
It could be your bed.
yeah, build a separate room in your house and put it in there. And so I don't know where we got off on that about, but anyway, the only other piece of Kiss news recently is they announced another big festival. I believe it's held in Mexico. It's a really kind of eclectic lineup. I mean, you got everything from Huey Lewis and the News to the B-52s, Led Zeppelin tribute bands, a bunch of that, and then Kiss is headlining the whole thing. And actually, Huey Lewis and the News is playing right before Kiss. So that's going to be an interesting lineup and a show for sure. So add Huey Lewis and the B-52s as bands that's opened up for Kiss now. Add them to the list.
Well, I seen some of the open air Chicago footage. It looked pretty good, actually.
Oh yeah, and you mentioned a couple episodes back you had someone that you knew that was going to that show. Do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, he went, and I talked to him today again about it at work, and his girlfriend dragged him, was the original thing he told me. Made him go, and he was going, he liked Megadeth and Anthrax and a lot of the other bands that were headlining. This was on a Friday, or not headlining, but Kiss was the headliner, and he said after he seen Kiss, he said, that's the best concert I've ever seen. He said Korn was almost as good, but Kiss was better. And I was talking to him today about it, and I said, you hate to admit that, don't you? He goes, yeah, I sort of hate to admit it. He said, because I always used to say Kiss sucks, this and that. And he goes, but to see them live, he said, you just really don't understand how much work they put into it, and you really respect them after seeing them live. I said, I couldn't have said it better myself.
Point blank. We've said it many times. Sometimes you just gotta peel that curtain away that you put in front of yourself, and judging a book by its cover. Sometimes you just gotta take that chance, and whether it's just listening to them, giving it a chance, or going and seeing them in person, which I've always said is the best way to introduce someone anyway. Look what happens. Another one's been converted. So.
Well, and I said, as far as, Paul Stanley said that. He goes, unless you've not seen the band live, you don't understand what we're about, more or less. And that's totally true with Kiss. But, a lot of people have that mentality because of their looks, more so than any other band, I think. That's why that we've had all that stuff go on with Rolling Stone and with the Rock Hall and all that, because people's initial response, they can't play music, they ain't no good, they're they don't give them any relevance, when to me they're just as relevant as any band that was out in the 70s or in the 80s to a certain degree, because they influenced all those 80s bands. You
Yeah.
know, so you have to take off your blinders, and it can be with any band, like you said. But I think Kiss has always had that problem more than any other one.
Right, and you hear those stories, back in the early days where people wasn't didn't know what they were about, and they would mistake them as like supposedly like thinking they were like a joke band, or they were literally like clowns and whatnot. And really, you still get that kind of stuff today. Whether you want to call that like a prejudice, or just lack of open mindedness is really what it comes down to. And it happened. It's going to happen every year. It's happening. It's probably happening every day somewhere in the world that someone is finally giving them an opportunity. Like I said, whether it's listening to them, or they're going to just go see them in concert, whether they're being dragged along or whatever, and then 9 times out of 10, you're going to have a converted Kiss fan now. So
Well, I asked him, I said, "So when you gonna go see Kiss again?" He goes, "I'd go see him again." And we was talking about Metallica because he really likes Metallica. He said that's one of his favorite groups of all time. And I said, I'll be honest. I said every song that Kiss has done has not been as good as the ones that are good. Like any band. And he goes, "Yeah." He says, like, a lot of people don't. And I said Metallica, for example, a lot of people don't like Load and Reload.
mm-hmm.
And then he said, and a lot of people don't like Saint Anger.
Oh yeah.
And see, I like all of that. To me, it doesn't stack up to Kill 'Em All or Ride the Lightning or Master of Puppets, but it's still Metallica, and I still like it. So it's the same way with Kiss. Being a Kiss fan, I'm not a fan of Hot in the Shade that much, or this or that, but I still like it because it's Kiss. So I mean, it's like that with any band, really.
Exactly. It gets to a point though. When you're a huge fan versus a casual fan, I mean, it gets hard to find songs that you don't like by the group. I mean, I could probably count on two hands, maybe 20 songs out of the whole catalog that I may not like as much. But when you add that up to all the other songs that there are, that's really not much at all. And I get it with the Metallica thing, because I've heard that from the fan base too all these years. Ever since the Black Album, people thought they sold out then, and Death Magnetic, everyone was complaining because they felt like it was mixed too hot, and it clips and everything, and too distorted, and the whole Saint Anger thing, all that stuff. And I haven't really heard any kind of backlash with the new album. It's been pretty well received. I thought it was a pretty good album. It's gonna have to grow on me, of course, because again,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go back to Puppets and Justice, and some of those albums are my favorite when it comes to Metallica. But there is some good stuff on there. It kind of has for one, the drum sound is kind of the classic Lars drum sound that's been missing on the last few albums. That's finally back. But song structure, it didn't sound like they were just trying too hard, like just intentionally trying to make a long, heavy song. And here I am knocking shit off my desk. But it didn't sound like they were reaching as much and trying as much. It's like they had it in the bag.
Well, I heard from people that would know, because I don't pay that much attention apparently, but when they did "And Justice for All," they said that the bass was mixed completely out because they were trying to, I don't know, because Jason Newsted had first joined. That was his first album, and it was that kind of initiation, or they were getting back at him. I don't know. I'm sure you've heard that.
Yeah, and there's versions out there now that they have the bass mixed back into it. That's out there like in bootleg circuits or whatever. And I thought I heard that Metallica was going to officially re-release that, with the bass back in it at some point. But honestly, I'm used to the way it sounds without the bass, that I feel like it would almost sound weird in a way to me to put it back in, because I don't know, I'm just used to that sound of that particular album.
It's funny because the song "One," when I think of classic rock, I almost want to include that song
Yeah,
because that's the first Metallica song I heard on the radio
yeah,
and played it a lot on stations here, around here. Uh, and it's strange because I don't consider any of their stuff previous to that in that same type of sound because it wasn't on the radio. I mean, they play stuff more now probably than they did then.
right. Yeah, I mean that and Sandman were probably that those are two classic rock staples now at this point, and that's great stuff. But it's like with Kiss, like the whole thing, say the Hotter Than Hell, the overall sound of that. If there was a way that they could have went in and completely remix that and make it sound completely different overall, like as much as we want it, at the same time I'd almost probably not like it because I am so used to the way it sounds, and then for it to suddenly change and sound completely different, I don't know if that would ruin it for me or not. But
Well, like with Destroyer Resurrected, I liked it a lot, and the reason I liked it is because when I got it, I listened to it on headphones, which I hadn't done that with the regular version of Destroyer.
mm-hmm.
There's one reason there, and then the other one, it just seemed a lot more crisp and clear because it had just recently been done. I guess maybe they remastered all that again or something. So I prefer the Resurrected one to the original one because to me it's not that much different to where they don't even sound like the same song. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not like a reimagined version like the Beatles' Love was, or Viva Elvis or something. It's still the same album with just, I guess, remixes is all they did. Sort of like with Double Platinum, but even less than that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing, of course, was the drums. Like, the drums stand out more in a lot of parts. The bass is a little more present in parts. And then I've heard Peter absolutely hates it, like the way they remixed it and the drum sound. But I agree. I like it. I don't necessarily like one better than the other, but I kind of like them both evenly. I can easily put on the regular version or Resurrected either way, and I'm satisfied either way. When I feel like hearing Destroyer.
Was I watching or listening to? Anyway, it was Eddie Trunk, and Peter Criss was the guest, and I don't know, this hadn't been too long ago. And he was playing songs from Resurrected, and Peter was on the show, and after they played God of Thunder, Peter said, yeah, he goes, Bob Ezrin was really, he was really on me to play, the same, in time and everything. He was talking about how he was blowing the whistle and all that, and you've heard those stories.
Mm-hmm.
And he also said, after hearing the God of Thunder version from Resurrected, which to me sounds like the same version, it's just, like I said, it's more crisp and clear. Peter says, yeah, I like the original version when he didn't have all them sound effects in there. And I'm thinking, that was always in the original version, was it not?
Yeah.
So there's something missing in that conversation somewhere.
Well, sometimes I think he forgets what he played, let alone stuff that was on the album in general.
Right. Because he probably never sat down and listened to Destroyer, like probably ever.
And reading Paul's book, he was talking about when they did Love Gun. I don't know if this is true, but just taking Paul's word for it, he was talking about Peter was unable to play the drums on Love Gun the way it was supposed to be, the way it sounds on the album. So basically he just played the regular way with the regular bass drum, and then they had to have someone else come in and fill in the extra bass drum hits that Peter wasn't able to do.
Wow.
I never knew that until I read that sentence in that book.
Well, I always wondered, not at the time, because when I was younger, I didn't know anything about, I never paid attention about, I wonder if so-and-so played this or that, you know what I mean?
Right.
But to think about it now or since then, I've always wondered, based on the stuff you heard about Psycho Circus and that tour, the farewell tour, and how Peter was just not able to play, I'm thinking, well, that song, like Love Gun, the studio version, to me, it's like one of their most up-tempo, fastest, heaviest songs, especially for 77.
Mm-hmm.
And to think about Peter playing that at all, even back then, I'm thinking I couldn't. In my mind, of course, I've seen footage and stuff, but in my mind, I can't see him playing it like the studio version because it's like a lot more repetitive
Right.
than the way he would play it live, probably even back then.
Yeah, and I mean, I always thought the way he played it live, I thought it was close enough because you're gonna change up certain things at times when you're playing live versus studio. But and again, they always put on that persona, and he says it all the time in the book. That it was the four of them. Living vicariously. Everything was great. That's the way they always kept portraying things. Even down, to the solo albums, dedicating them to each other and all that stuff, because they were trying to keep that persona or whatever going. And that's how I always assumed it was for years too. When
they picked that back up with Psycho Circus and started it again.
Exactly, all the way from probably Dynasty to Unmasked, and then it happened again with Psycho Circus.
Because I think with the reunion, I think things were still fine.
Yeah. I mean, so, like I said, when I was younger, I was the same way. I assumed every time I listened to all them Kiss albums or saw the older concerts, everything was great. It was always the four of them that played on there. But so much time passes, so much more things come out, and then when you do go back and hear it, you kind of think like, it really doesn't sound like Peter's style of playing. But then.
Something else is like with bands like Black Sabbath. I remember listening to, I think it was "We Sold Our Soul for Rock and Roll." I had that on vinyl, one of the first Black Sabbath I think I had, and there's a couple songs on there that has keyboards on them.
Mm-hmm.
And listening to it, ever how young I was back in the 70s probably, I didn't think anything about it, but I did remember thinking, this sounds a lot different than the other songs that's on here. Like with Iron Man and Paranoid, and then you have I think it was Laguna Sunrise, or there's a couple songs on there that's got keyboards in it. And then I find out years and years later that what's his face from Rick Wakeman from Yes played, showed Ozzy. They had this big synthesizer, and Ozzy didn't know how to play it, and they wanted a certain sound, so they had Rick Wakeman come in and play all that.
Wow. See, I never knew that.
Yeah, and so I'd never heard that, never even thought about it. Of course, as a kid, for one, I wouldn't have known who Rick Wakeman was. But I remember thinking then that it sounded a lot different. So, when it comes to Kiss, I mean, to listen to it now, it's like, yeah, you can sort of hear that that's not. That's not Ace Frehley, it's Bob Kulick. But
Mm-hmm.
you know that now.
Right. And like I said, back then, it was all four of them on every song, as far as I was concerned. But,
I think that's why they were all playing solo songs on the Dynasty. I think that's why they initially started doing that. I mean, for two reasons. One, to keep Ace and Peter happy, probably. And the other one was to make it look like, just because they're solo albums don't mean that we're breaking up. Look, we'll play one. They'll play it.
Imagine if Ace had chose to do Rip It Out on that Dynasty tour instead of New York Groove. I would have loved to hear Peter try to play that.
Yeah, that would have been different.
Especially some of them fills there in the break.
Well, I probably would have liked that song a lot better if I'd have seen that footage back then of that song instead of New York Groove.
Mm-hmm.
Because, see, like I said before, even on this podcast, I didn't have the Ace Frehley solo album as a kid, so a lot of those songs I wasn't familiar with until the 80s, because I got it on cassette, the Peter and the Ace on cassette. So, like Rip It Out and Ozone and a lot of those songs I'd never heard before until then. So, New York Groove, I'd heard that one all along,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a lot of them songs I probably didn't hear a lot of those till, I don't know, late 90s when I started buying all the CDs, all the remasters, and would listen to them. But it still took a while for a lot of that stuff to really grow on me. As I started getting older and as the years went by, the more a lot of those songs became some of my favorites. And, like I said, even within the last few years, I've started taking a liking to things that I was completely, the other way about before when it comes to certain songs of theirs or certain albums, and but Black Sabbath, huh?
Go ahead.
Well, the Black Sabbath, I guess I need to pull out my FAQ book and read that now, because maybe there's more stuff that I didn't know about them that I could find out that would probably be in there.
What I was going to say about a lot of the Kiss albums that I didn't have, as when they first came out or in the 70s, whatever, Best Buy at one time had a whole cassette section of like discount cassettes. So I bought, I bought the Ace Frehley one there. I bought the Peter Criss. And I think I got probably Hotter Than Hell and Destroyer. I bought probably 6 or 8, if not more than that, cassettes that I'd never had before. So I learned all those songs like Two Timer and Room Service and stuff, because I remember watching a Skid Row home video and Sebastian singing Room Service with a fan, and it's like I'd never even didn't know it was a Kiss song until I got the cassette and started. I mean, I had the cassette, but I didn't know that, didn't put the 2 and 2 together, because it didn't sound the same with Sebastian and a fan singing.
Right.
It clicked in my head. It's like, oh yeah, now I know.
Yeah, it's crazy how that stuff happens. And then kind of back to the studio stuff, like on the demo for Love Gun, I always thought that Paul was playing everything on that demo. Well, then come to find out in the book, he didn't play the drums on it. He had a studio musician come in and play, because he did the demos there at Electric Lady. And I had always assumed, and I could have swore, I could be wrong, but back when the box set came out, I could have swore in the book that it said that he played everything on it. And that,
I think it did say that, and I think that they just said that as a broad statement. I don't think they were trying to give the details, because I would love to see Paul play drums.
Right, and now his book, and then he's saying a complete different thing. So again, it's this. Sometimes it's like, a lot of stuff comes up where it's like they're trying to pull the wool over your eyes, and you don't know which version to believe.
I think that's the thing with all of them writing books, and then you have these other Kiss books from other people's point of view, like roadies and everything else. There are so many versions of the same thing. I mean, it's like a Kiss Bible, if you will.
Right. I mean,
Luke and John are going to say something totally different than Mark and George
and Peter and Ace
and Ringo.
I think it was last week. Even from Paul, not giving the full story about Rick saving him in the ocean that time, and it came back to bite him in the ass.
You talking about Rick Derringer again?
It could have been Rick Derringer. Maybe he was there too. But hey, it bit him in the ass, and it hurt Rick's feelings, and Paul did the right thing, called him up, all that stuff. We talked about it last week, I think it was, but that was right before your maintenance man came in and cleaned your pipes.
They're working good.
I now have another copy of Sonic Boom on CD. And I did listen to that re-recorded disc, and I will say there was a couple on there that I do kind of like now.
Yeah.
Where
that's the first time you listened to it, or just recently?
Recently, it's been a while. Because I had this CD, and I don't remember what I did with it. But there was some stuff on there that I did kind of like after hearing it the second time around.
I think the reason that I like it is because it's the current lineup of Kiss, and I like the current lineup really well. So I like to hear what they can do in the studio when it comes to their classic material, because that's basically what it all is.
And here's the thing, like I know it technically doesn't get included, but would that sort of almost be included in the discography as another album? Or I know it's technically more of a compilation, but they went in and re-recorded them all.
Right.
And it's kind of like it's an album, even though it's songs that are already out. But they did the same thing with Smashes, Thrashes, and Hits. And
I think because originally it was released in Japan only by itself, and it was called something else. I don't remember the name of it. It had like a black cover with something on.
Really weird name
So
too.
the fact that they've included it with Sonic Boom and re-released it, I think not only is that like a bonus disc for us that didn't have it because it just was Japan only, but I think it counts as units when they do it that way.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? So Sonic Boom, they're selling Sonic Boom, and then they're also selling that as a separate unit, and it's racking the numbers up for the sales on that.
Yeah, that makes sense, but
I think that's partially the reason why it's put together that way.
I've just always kind of wondered, and I feel like it kind of should be considered as part of the discography. Cause,
Yeah, me too.
you know, Smash Slashes and Hits is considered, Killers is considered. You know, yeah, it's basically, it's kind of all three. It's like a greatest hits, it's a compilation, but then at the same time, it's new versions of those songs that are re-recorded, which Smash Slashes and Hits was pretty much the same thing. It was either re-recorded or remixed or.
Well, I think that with the what's it called? It's called Kissology, isn't it? Or isn't that the name of it? Kissology or the best of
Kiss Classics.
Kiss Classics? Okay. I was just going to say that I think that because Walmart was the distributor or whatever you call it, and a lot of stuff with Sonic Boom, you know, it's almost like Sonic Boom is harder to get on vinyl or by itself because it was distributed like this more so. And then, of course, the vinyl didn't have those extras with it. But it's almost like because Walmart owns that, could they include it in their regular discography? Because the only way you could get Sonic Boom was in that big guitar roadie case, whatever, the box set that came out, I don't know, a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, you could get it originally on colored vinyl, but after that, you couldn't get it.
You know, I wouldn't mind if they ever release that as its own separate vinyl, that Classics thing.
I'd buy it.
Yeah, I'd buy it. And, you know, and again, it comes down to this whole packaging thing. I mean, everything, you know, the vinyl version of the CD version, the way it's all packaged and 2 extra discs and.
My only, and I didn't know this at the time and didn't think about it, but my only negative thing I'd say about the packaging and everything that's in it is I wish the DVD had the full show because it does exist on YouTube.
True. And
now, I know that in that show they had a lot of sound problems. If you watch the show on YouTube, there's a lot of sound problems. And where is that? In Santiago, Chile or somewhere?
Buenos Aires, I believe.
Buenos Aires. And, you know, the crowd is loud generally in those type of places. So the crowd does make up for a lot of the sound problems. Because I think when Eric is singing, I don't know if it's Black Diamond or what it is, I don't even think you can hear his vocals. I think it's that show I'm thinking of.
That could be why they cut a lot of it out.
Yeah, but to me and to a Kiss fan, I wouldn't care.
Right, exactly.
I've watched it online and I've enjoyed it.
Right, I've seen worse quality bootlegs that I've sat through and watched because it's a Kiss show.
And there's on that same concert, if you watch Eric Singer, during when the crowd is chanting and, you know, doing what they do in those countries, I don't know what they're actually saying because I don't speak their language. What is it, Spanish? But Eric Singer has his phone or his camera. He's up on the drum risers and he's filming the crowd for quite a long time until they get back into whatever song they were getting ready to do. Did you notice?
It's been a while since I've watched it, but I probably did.
I thought that was really interesting to see him doing that.
And I guess like the only gripe I can make about the packaging is I wish the 2 bonus discs were in an actual like tray like the main CD is instead of just that sleeve.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind if they ever did a vinyl release, you know, whether it's like a record store day thing or whatever, just of those Kiss Classics, that album.
Oh, something trivial I just thought of, and I don't know, my brain works like that, but okay, like some people like colored vinyl and some people prefer just black vinyl.
Uh-huh.
Some people say because of the sound quality, whatever. Okay, well, no one ever talks about colored CDs because they're all silver on one side and then the other side it's just got the label and nobody cares. Wonder why that the CDs aren't colored, you know, like records on both sides and have like a label in the middle. Wonder why they never done them that way.
Well, they used to make blank CDs that were colored.
Yeah, I remember those, and they had some that sort of looked like they had like little fake grooves on
Yeah.
one side.
Yeah,
I don't remember that. They were like verbatim. Was that the name of them?
I think so. But you know, that's probably the reason is being a CD. You know, you're not. It's not. You know, you can't watch it as it's playing anyway. So
That proves that vinyl is totally different.
yeah, I mean, it's. I mean, it's so much more than just the audio side of it, but it's also a visual experience on top of that. So it's like you're getting all these senses at once. You know, even taste. If you like to lick your records, I don't know, you might be weird like that, but you know, like holding this versus the vinyl. You know, a bigger picture. You know, the record comes out, it's a colored version. You know, that's a visual thing to look at while it's spinning on the turntable. You know, I have kind of a weird thing with vinyl. I love looking at the grooves. Adam and what the fuck? Wow.
So yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, see, exactly. And, you know, I like watching the grooves on a record as it's spinning, you know, if the light's hitting it right. I love the way grooves look in certain records.
Well, I tell you what I've been wanting to do, and I've seen people post these online, and I don't know, I never looked into prices or exactly what pressing it is, but once again, it goes back to Black Sabbath. Their original label was that swirl label, that black and white swirl.
Vertigo.
Yeah, Vertigo, when you play the record and it looks like it's going like in and out of itself. It's
Everything
like
goes back to Black Sabbath.
Everything goes back.
Do you have any of those? The Vertigo swirl?
I don't have the swirl. I have the reissues. It's just the green label.
Okay. I don't have any Sabbath on the swirl, but I have a couple other albums that are on the swirl. And then actually the newest Black Sabbath album, that they put that on the swirl.
Oh, did they really?
Mm-hmm.
See, now I want to get it just for that reason.
There you go.
Don't have that on vinyl.
I need to listen to that again. It's been a while since I've listened to it. I usually just listen to the one song.
I actually like that album.
Mm-hmm.
It was really, and that's why I go on and on about Rick Rubin. That's one of the reasons, because I think that he got them to sound like they needed to sound, you know, for people that's maybe discovering Sabbath and their earlier albums, and here's the new Sabbath. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was their very first, or at least I know it went to number one.
Oh, did it? I didn't even know that. So
I think it did.
And, you know, the whole thing with Brad Wilk playing drums, when I heard about that, you know, you think of Rage Against the Machine, what he did, and, you know, it's good stuff, but it's like a whole different style. And I was kind of like a little skeptical in a way. But then, I'll tell you what, he nailed it.
Well, I love the footage of that last DVD they came out with. Is that him on drums, or he was just on the studio? Because there was two separate guys, was there not?
I haven't seen that DVD, so I'm not sure if he's on it or the other guy that they had filling in.
His whole back is tattooed.
Yeah.
And he, like braids.
Oh, that's the other guy. That's the guy he was playing with Ozzy too.
Okay, that's who I thought that was, because he's a really good drummer. I think.
Yeah. So, you know, obviously everybody would have rather had Bill Ward on the album and everything, but I'll tell you what, it was a good choice to go with Brad Wilk.
You know, here's the thing: if you want to compare Black Sabbath to Kiss, would Peter Criss be touring with them now, or Bill Ward be playing, you know, with Black Sabbath on the last tour? Because it's a similar situation, and it might be because it's drummers. Once you get a certain age, I mean, that's pretty strenuous.
I totally agree. I mean, back when Sabbath did the reunion and that one DVD that came out, The Last Supper, you know, even then, like, you could tell a big difference in Bill Ward's drumming. Like, it was a lot slower too, like a lot of those guys get, like Peter and everything. But there was still enough to it though that was, you know, it worked.
Well, I think that people are hooked to the nostalgia. It's about that time for him to start crying for his mommy. I think people are hooked to the nostalgia, so, you know, that's why people go on and on about Peter and Ace all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But then at the same time, Paul and Gene comes back and says, we've been down that road and they just can't do it anymore. I think Ace is better than he's been in years and years and years. From the footage I've seen and from the stuff that I've heard,
Mm-hmm.
I think Ace could totally. I don't know if he could do a whole tour on Kiss's schedule, but at the same time, Kiss doesn't really do tours like they used to do either. So
Right. I watched most of a full show of Aces. It was from like a week or two ago. Someone posted the full show on YouTube, and he sounded a lot better vocally and everything. And I noticed on the audio side of it, and the guy mentions it in the video. You know, everything does sound a little slow, but he said he was like, you know, I was thinking that same thing when I'd watch videos, but when I was actually at the show, he said it's like perfect though, because it's like it makes it sound so much bigger, and you know, and I understand that because that's how I felt back when I saw Sabbath in 2001. Like you could tell it was slower, like especially Iron Man, but God, it just had such a enormous presence to it. Like it was giving me goosebumps, just how big it sounded, and it made it sound heavier, being slower like that. And so I kind of understand where he's coming from. So as I'm listening to it, I was kind of taking that for granted, or
and that's sort of like with Sabbath. That sort of goes with like what a lot of like doom and stoner bands do. They play it slower because that gives it more of a atmosphere type thing.
Exactly.
And of course, they learned that initially from Sabbath. So then, if Sabbath does that, it's going to enhance what they've already done. I think. I mean, I wasn't there. I wish I would have been.
Because sometimes you just gotta let those notes breathe and slow it down a little bit. Because if you're just playing full speed, and Kiss has been guilty for it too. If you watch that Animalize show, how fast that is, it kind of it takes away from some of the songs at times. It's so fast that it's kind of hard to get that.
A lot of stuff in the '80s was like that.
Yeah, and it's just it takes away from the rhythm of the song, and the notes. Some of the notes don't stand out the way they should, and it's just.
I have heard different things about that. That Gene thought faster was better. Have you heard that? Where he said he wanted to play it faster because it gave it more of something that he thought it should have. I don't know exactly.
See, I never heard that, but it's just kind of ironic that he would say that, but yet he was always so against the fast guitar playing and then double bass drumming and all that stuff. So
see, that once again, that's a contradictory thing. What's the real story there?
Right, and we all know now they've done that a lot over the years, and they still do it. I mean, there's things that we're playing the full Creatures of the Night album,
and that's something else. Like they were talking about mainly with Peter in the band towards the end there before he was let go the last time. Paul would have to turn around and count the songs off, or back before he left the first time in the 70s or whatever. He would speed up and slow down on purpose, and Paul would get mad. They were probably all mad at that point. So that being said, when he's playing too slow, it's almost like, okay, well now it's okay. Because when they were playing, like, I don't know, some of the songs they played in the 80s, Ace and Peter on the farewell tour, they weren't playing them exactly like, first they were playing them like real fast like they did in the 80s, which wasn't accurate to the album, and they were sort of playing them a little bit slower than they needed to be played on pretty much all their songs.
My thing with Peter's playing from Reunion on, it was like, I get the slower playing based on age, but I was always like, just open up your hi-hat a little bit. Like, at least that'll make it sound a little bit heavier and faster with that hi-hat, because he'd always play it so closed and tight that it just made it sound, like a metronome.
I just wonder if his drum tech ever suggested things like that. I mean, it seems like even if they did, the way Peter probably thought that, this is the way I've always done it. He probably thought he was always right and never wanted to change.
But see, he didn't though, because in the 70s he would play with that hi-hat open and nice and sloshy and loud. And
so do you think that his drum tech was not aware of a lot of that stuff? I mean,
he may have suggested things. I'd love to hear some stories from the drum tech. You know, we don't ever hear that kind of stuff, and
Yeah, I think that'd be a great person to ask questions.
yeah,
Or guitar tech. I mean, any of the people that I mean, we've never heard interviews with them. I haven't.
I mean, the only person I've heard say anything about their drum tech is Eric Singer. I think it was at the expo. He was mentioning, you know, his tech had recommended, you know, let's tune the toms this way and blah 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 blah. And now it sounds better, and they cut through better live and everything. So, you know, he's the only one I've actually heard talk about their tech and give credit to.
Well, I know that Eric Singer, he's not the type of person that has a big fat ego, and
No,
you know,
no,
he seems like he's open to anything. And you know, as far as he hasn't learned everything yet, he'd probably say.
right. And there, you know, there's a quote that comes out of that Hired Gun documentary that just came out. You know, he's like, I always wanted to be in Kiss, and you know, I was always a huge Kiss fan, a huge Alice Cooper fan. He's like, I never thought in a million years that I'd be in both bands.
I know, that's crazy.
You know, it's just, yeah. You know, I'm sure Tommy probably felt the same way back when he was playing in a tribute band and, you know, even working for the band. Like, probably never thought that the day would happen or the opportunity would happen, but hey, right place, right time, I guess. And as long as you got the skills.
Yeah, because I don't think that, from any of the things that I've heard, I don't really think that there was anyone else other than Eric Singer at the time, whether it be the first incarnation he was in Kiss or with makeup after that, and Tommy Thayer. I don't think there was any other, you know, it's not like there was people lined up, okay, well, we'll try you, and if you don't work out, we'll try this guy. It just, those were the only guys.
Yeah, because as far as we know, they never held auditions like they did back, you know, the first time, and you know, when Eric Carr joined and all that.
It's because, you know, Eric and Tommy just happened to not only be there and work for Kiss or be in the, you know, Kiss circle or whatever you want to call it, but it just so happens that Tommy did play guitar and, you know, Eric did play drums.
Well, with Eric, it was kind of a given choice, you know, because he had already been in the band and he really wasn't doing anything that was really taking up his time where he couldn't commit. And you know, with Tommy though, I think one of the things that helped him was the fact that he helped Ace relearn so many of his solos, and I'm sure Gene and Paul took note of that right away. And you know, maybe there was times that, you know, he got to jam with them a little bit on guitar and, you know, worked his way in, and maybe even, you know, asked them for the opportunity, you know, please let me try out.
You know, they might not initially, you know, even though they'd noticed, okay, he's showing Ace stuff that Ace doesn't know and he knows it better than Ace, they probably did take note of it, but they probably never really thought at that point, at that time, oh, well, he's just going to replace Ace one of these days, you know?
Yeah, it was.
It just so happens that they put that in the back of their mind, and then when it's like, okay, now we're in a situation where this is really, we know this will work. So
yeah, because just like, you know, with the '70s, they would have rather it just kept going and been the four of them. But I think as soon as that started, you know, being an obvious thing that Ace was going to be leaving again, that was probably the first one they kind of looked at was Tommy. And like I say,
Bruce had said that he never got that call, and he really wouldn't have been comfortable doing it.
Right. I understand.
He never said that he would or wouldn't do it, but I really don't. You know, I've pictured that in my mind. It's like, okay, if Bruce had been the guy instead of Tommy, then Bruce would be the spaceman at this point. And I can't even think about what that would look like, or how that. It doesn't seem to be real.
I agree. He was that, you know, that just shows Bruce is a smart guy. He knew that it wouldn't have worked, and because again, like I said, he was in the band for so long that it wouldn't have made much sense. I mean, you know, Eric wasn't in the band as long as Bruce, so it's kind of different in a way. But it's almost
been gone for long enough too.
Right. And then it's almost like if you had Ace come in and asked him to play with no makeup or costume, it's kind of the same thing to me. Like, it just wouldn't look right. It wouldn't make sense. And
Yeah, it's like when they did the Unplugged. It's like I sort of, it's like, wow, they're playing with Ace and Peter, but at the same time, I felt like, but it's not really Kiss because they're not wearing the makeup and stuff. And then I thought, well, I know they're not because Kiss currently isn't wearing makeup. So, you go back and forth in your head. And once again, Kiss is the only band that you think this thing.
Yeah, but, it definitely didn't take them long after that, though, to realize that it was going to work at the time and throw it all back on and come out and surprise everybody. And
I really do think that, that they were, I could be totally wrong, but I really do think they were offered a lot of money to do it, or they were told, this is the only way you're going to save your career. I mean, maybe I'm just Mr. Skeptical and I want to believe that, but I really do believe it's one or the other or both.
I think a lot of that, and they were probably also had enough hindsight to realize that, okay, we'd be stupid not to do this or at least try it, because at the time they were only playing, small like civic centers and things like that, and then so versus that, and then having the chance of selling out, baseball stadiums and Madison Square Garden multiple nights, things like that.
And I don't think they initially, from you watch the Second Coming DVD, I don't think they really knew that it was going to be as big as it was.
Right.
They were hoping for it, and they thought, well, and it reminds me of, like, okay, when they did Kiss Alive, that was their only chance. That was their last chance to do that. This either is going to make or break us, and the record company. So It's almost like when they put the makeup back on for the reunion, it's like, okay, this is either going to prove what we've tried to say all along, what Kiss is, or it's going to be the end. I mean, maybe they didn't say that, but it's almost like an unspoken type of thing because, I mean, I know Ace and Peter wasn't really doing anything else. They were probably broke. Paul and Gene was far from broke, but if you watch, or at least I've heard, if you look at a lot of the arenas for the Revenge tour and Hot in the Shade, they weren't completely sold out every night.
No, not at all. And that even back during Creatures and all that, it was like that. And Ace and Peter, they were on tour together, just pretty much playing clubs and
bad boys of rock and roll.
Peter with his blonde hair, and they were just playing clubs at the time. So again, like, would you not try to take the opportunity to be back to where you used to be and making that kind of money, or just keep doing where you were at? And then, with Kiss, had that never had a chance to happen, who knows if they would have still been around.
I am really surprised, though, to think about it now, that Paul and Gene was willing to give Ace and Peter another chance like that.
Yeah.
I mean, they were giving themselves another chance, too, but considering all the stuff that they went through that we know now by reading their books and hearing stuff, that they would, okay, well, I'm sure these guys are different. I'm sure they're not like they used to be, even though they probably did tell them that, and did they 100% believe it? It's almost like there was an added reason.
Right, I mean,
it.
They definitely wanted to believe that, but then it didn't take long to find out it wasn't the case. But now, who knows? I mean, again, it's like it's never going to happen as far as, in my opinion, goes. But now that Gene has worked with Ace again, can he finally lay that shit to rest? And
well, it's like initially when they did the reunion, I mean, I know Paul and Gene at that point especially would have a lot more creative control over their career and what we do and what we don't do. But considering they got along so well with Eric and Bruce, and they compare that to how it was with Peter and Ace before, it's almost like, okay, well, we're either going to put makeup on with Eric and Bruce, or we're just going to continue the way we are and release another Carnival of Souls or whatever, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, I still feel like, and maybe it's just me trying to read into stuff, but I still feel like there had to be more to it for them to really go back and say, here we are with Ace and Peter again. We don't know how this is going to turn out, but You know, it's almost like there was an added reason that we're not aware of for them to do that. What do you think?
I mean, I really feel like it just came down to the money more so than anything. I mean, they were willing to give it another shot. It happened to be the wrong timing. Had they have never done the reunion, and then right now, like say, 2014 or something, that maybe they would have had a chance. Everything might have worked a little better.
Well, not to compare them to, I can't think of an example, maybe you can, but think of another band that, after years of being apart or a variation of the original band, gets back together and does a reunion tour of sorts. Can you think of another band that tried that, and I know there's several, and didn't really go anywhere? I mean, not to the magnitude that Kiss reunion did, because that was pretty up there. But there's been a lot of bands that might have just maybe done one tour. It's like, okay, well, you don't ever hear anybody talk about it. You don't ever hear anybody say it was great. You know, the first one comes to my mind was the Sex Pistols. Now, I know Sid Vicious wasn't alive at that point, but it's almost like that was a non-existent tour, because and of course the Sex Pistols, that's classic for them to not finish a tour. I don't know if they finished it, but it's like I didn't see footage from it. I didn't hear anything about it. I don't think they did an album. It was almost like, okay, we'll do it, and who cares?
Right. I mean, Stone Temple Pilots. When they brought Scott back, it didn't seem like it lasted that long.
Right. That's another one.
Rage Against the Machine. It seemed like they were gonna try to get something going, like putting out another album and everything, but it seemed like that all just kind of went belly up. Kind of a more obscure sort of metal band. I'm not sure how many people are familiar that listen to this, but Nothing Face. They had gotten back together, was going to work on a new album, and then that all fell apart. Just issues within the band, and now the lead singer just passed away a few months back, and so that's out the window. But and there's probably a whole ton more that can't even think of at the moment.
So what if they got back, if Kiss got back together, started the reunion tour, and say it didn't go nowhere? What do you think would have happened at that point? You think, I mean, they could have went 2 or 3 different directions.
I think they would have probably put the band on the back burner for a period of time and just done solo projects, or it may have just ended altogether. I'd rather have Kiss now like we do, and they get criticized about things, but I'd rather have that now than back in '95 or whatever, that they would have just failed and just had no choice but to go away, as failures, and then they'd have been looked at like has-beens or something, at this point.
It would have been really bad for them.
Right. So
like I was saying earlier, people don't get past the look, but if they'd have not went anywhere for the reunion, think of all the fans that they wouldn't have had from '96 on.
Right. And I'm glad they took the risk that they did. I mean, it did work for a little bit, at least the reunion part of it. And then it all just went back to the same, pretty much deja vu from, the 70s.
Do you think if the reunion tour didn't take off like it did, I think their first inclinations is, one, when they were on the Grammys, and then 2, when they sold out Tiger Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
But say if those things didn't really go over that well, do you think they would have just dropped the idea and just continued with Bruce and Eric? You think because they really wouldn't have had a lot of things going on, that they maybe would have been able to do that and get away with it, in other words?
Yeah, if the ticket sales didn't do what they expected, they probably would have had to cancel a lot of those bigger shows. And I don't know.
So if they didn't sell out a lot of Tiger Stadium like they did in, 40 minutes or something, you think that would have been the only Kiss show with makeup, and they would have not went any farther? Because, I mean, how much of it was booked at that point? They might not have had everything booked. I don't know how that worked.
Well, they may have even had to cancel the Tiger Stadium show if it didn't sell as good as they wanted it to.
But Could you imagine that would be the last and only document we would have of Kiss and Makeup with 4 originals, the very last thing they did.
Right, and that very well could have happened. That could have been the last memory of Kiss that everybody had, and it would be
the version of that that's on Kissology. They are really tired and worn out on that concert.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of mistakes throughout the whole thing that you hear, and timing and stuff. But but that could have been the last thing of Kiss that everybody remembered, and that could have been it. And then they'd have went down as has-beens and a laughing stock, and it failed. They tried to do a reunion, and it failed. And
I'm glad that wasn't the last of it, because that wouldn't have been a good way to end a career.
No, exactly. Like I say,
if it was the Makeup part of the career, I don't know if they could have made another album and sold anything even with Bruce and Eric, because the sales wasn't good to begin with before that.
I think if that had happened, I think the band would have probably been done, because they had already pretty much said see you later to Eric and Bruce. They were already off doing their own thing. So for them to just call them back up, yeah, we were wrong. Who knows if they would have just come right back, or what would have happened.
I wonder if they gave them a window of time, because it being Ace and Peter, they probably thought, maybe, I don't know if it says in their books, I don't remember. It's like, okay, well, we'll give this 6 months, and if it doesn't pan out, then we might be calling you back. I wonder if there was that kind of conversations.
Not that I know of, because I thought I heard once that, like, Bruce hadn't spoke to Gene or Paul or both of them for quite a few years after that or something.
It's very possible.
So and
like
I said, I'm glad they took the chance. They didn't have something like that happen where they would be looked at as has-beens and a laughing stock. They're still around today. They get criticized for whatever reasons, but still, they didn't fail. They're still going strong. And
well, even if they didn't do the reunion with Makeup, the Kiss Unplugged is, I can watch that over and over.
Yeah, love it.
To me, that's as close as you're going to get, unless you want to go back and watch the 70s stuff.
Right, and I prefer to watch the unedited version of Unplugged versus the one that aired.
And I'm sort of surprised too that to watch that Ace and Peter. At that point, I think they were happy to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't care how many times they had to redo a song,
Oh, yeah.
Because they don't seem to be affected by it at all, at least not negative.
Nah, hell, some of the mistakes were Ace and Peter on some of them songs too, if you remember.
Yeah, Ace messed up on 2000 Man, but then Gene messed up on, was it Domino, like 3 or 4 times?
Yeah, that was funny, but it started
because
getting.
I remember seeing on MTV the original broadcast, and when they did Domino and when they did Every Time I Look at You, before and after, the crowd was just going crazy, and I'm thinking, how do they know these? Why these weren't hit songs technically? Why are they acting that way? So then you watch the unedited version, and then you realize, because they did the song a million times, and the crowd was cheering because they finally got through it and didn't mess it up.
Yeah. Yeah, you could tell Paul was getting a little annoyed by it.
Oh, yeah.
My God, like, how many times you got to do this song? And it was like, it was still pretty new at the time, too. So.
Right. Put his shirt back on. At one point, he says, for continuity.
Yeah. It wasn't like Gene doing charisma like now, like he's been doing on them shows where he's struggling, but, the song was no more than a couple years old at that point.
Yeah, that's a big difference. And at the time, I must have been totally oblivious because, well, I didn't have Revenge at the time, so that's probably why. Every Time I Look at You, I didn't know. I was thinking that was someone else's song that they were covering.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why it was getting the applause. Oh, well, they're doing so-and-so's song. But I was thinking, I know the song, but how do I know the song? I must have heard it somewhere, but I didn't have the album at that time.
Right.
So that was another thing I kept thinking. It's like, okay, why are they doing someone else's song? And you'd think in 95 I would have known better than that.
Well, hey, it happens. So
Because you never seen that video on MTV. It was a video, but you never seen it.
yeah, if they ever aired it, it was pretty rare, and it was like on the like the 120 minutes or something that would show stuff that was a little more, light or whatever.
Yeah, because I don't. I want to say that I don't even really remember seeing Domino on MTV. I know they would play that one probably more than everybody every time I look at you, but I don't ever remember seeing that one either.
I don't either, and I think because at the time it was kind of somewhat controversial type of video to where they couldn't really air it, or if they did air it, it was probably late at night, so that's probably why we missed it most of the time. So
Probably, yeah.
but well, I think we're gonna bring this one to a close. Got to get ready to head out here in a minute. We still want to hear some input on the episode from a few weeks ago with the set list ideas. I'd love to get some more ideas left on those. I'd like to listen to as many different versions of a set list as I can. Got one that should be coming our way soon, so I'm waiting to hear about that. But so again, leave some comments, subscribe, like the Facebook page, and again, this may or may not be the last time you see the show as just the two of us. So we will see you next week.
Might be a three-way.
Ooh, Skyline. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you next week.